What is going on, everyone? My name's Boit, and I'm back with some more Age of Mythology Retold shenanigans here. Today, we're going to be going over the beta tier list. Now, to start this off, it's pretty crazy to say that this list is 100% accurate at this moment. This is my guesses on what the balance state is. I'm going to try and justify what I'm thinking just a little bit here. Let's start off, get straight into it with the C tier. It pains me to say this, but I think that Poseidon is sitting at the bottom of my list. He is in the C tier. He just doesn't get anything amazing anymore. The speed on the Hippocon is great. Don't get me wrong, we all know how good speed boosts are in Age Mythology, but for 1v1s, Hippocons are already the slowest cavalry. And Poseidon Cav, they now go up to 5.9 speed. They're still slower than raiding cavalry. The combat triangle is fixed to some degree, with infantry actually having significant bonus damage versus cavalry. So going mass Hippocon is not really possible. Your opponent will just build infantry units and win big fights. That being said, Poseidon does have faster myth units and Ares, which I think is very, very strong. He also has the Nemean Lions, so the same potential that Hades has, but without having Sentinels, Poseidon just can't sit back and go heroic age without taking any significant damage from raids and aggression, making it kind of hard to make it work. B tier. Okay, Loki is in this spot for the sole reason that I didn't really see any good Lokis. He seems like he got hit the hardest, no longer has the speedy Herser, no longer gets myth units from attacking buildings. That being said, he can be played a little more normally now, so he does have some upside. I also didn't get to see his mythic age. I really wanted to see the Nidhogg in action. I'm sure he'll be a menace to deal with. But at any rate, I think that Loki's going to need some new theory and might have to go back a little bit to being more of a Heimdall rusher rather than that four-city Hall of Thanes Herser idea from the Titans. There's a big question mark for me on this one. We'll have to wait and see. Isis is another one where I'm relying on theory crafting. I didn't get to see a lot of her over the beta weekend, but Isis's problems are always going to be about doing an efficient boom into a timing attack. Well, now you have access to the villager center, allowing you to sit in your base on two town centers, do a fast heroic, and hit a nice Ancestors Eclipse Isis timing attack. I just don't think it's going to be all too strong with all the other civs having significant buffs. Isis still has access to Anubis, so she, like Set, can still abuse the Anubites and the Plague of Serpents. Though without Set's barracks bonus, her early classical flight doesn't seem to have as much potential, as her units are going to be much slower. Sobek is going to basically be unusable just as it is with Ra, so you basically have all the options that Set has, but you are just going to be slower and have a rougher time economy-wise. You do still have Prosperity and Pre-Siege, as well as the potential to abuse Thoth's Valley of the King's Elephants. But it just seems to me that Isis is almost budget set at this point. The other thing to look into with Isis is that her late game is potentially S plus tier with a unique bonus to HP tied to technologies. I'm not sure on the math, but the sort of bonus HP across all units when you have all technology upgrades sounds crazy. We'll have to wait and see if she can even make it to the late game though. The A tier. Ra might seem a bit low on this list, and you may be right, but let me at least give my reasoning. The short of it is, I think Tar is dead. I don't think he's a good classical age god to pick with Ra anymore, even though Shadoof is cheaper and stronger. Bast is just better in so many different ways. Empowering monuments, I can literally empower all 5 of them with my Pharaoh and empower farms and wood in my main base. This means I can get a huge amount of favor out for the Sphinx, which now costs gold. are ridiculously good raiders, and also I have access to Sacred Cats, which is, to me, a pretty much must-grab technology which boosts your hunt, your herdables, and your farms now. The problem is that this will become predictable. Players will learn to expect Bast and know how to defend themselves against this, leaving you kind of praying that you can get damage done so as to not fall behind. Like said before, Sobek is basically unpickable as well, leaving you with Sekhmet as your only heroic age choice. It's not actually a terrible thing. I think Sekhmet is a pretty good heroic age god now, but the fact that you don't get the Petsukos, the really strong Petsukos, now they're a little bit easier to pick off. Medjai is kind of laughably bad now with the mercenary nerf, and Locust is difficult to get value out, to say the very least. Luckily, Ra does have some redeeming features in the Mythic Age with Osiris and Horus. Basically, Osiris is the same as before, but you can get extra Son of Osiris's out there, and Horus, with the combination of Eclipse, making some of those making some of those Avengers, making some of those Sphinx, click an Eclipse, that's going to be really, really hard to defend. Anyways, next up, we've got Zeus. And he is simply here because I think he's a really simple god to play. And I think Hera is absolutely bonkers. Lightning Storm kills full population armies. Bellerophon has a ridiculous amount of HP and damage. And also the new unique tech offers free Myrmidons. I just can't see Zeus not being a strong god in Retold. And it kind of showed on day one before players started moving away from him over to Odin. I expect him to still be very, very strong going forward. Okay, this pick here is a bit of a funky one. This one is what I'm going to call sleeper OP. This is Thor. I think he has the potential to be stronger than pretty much any god in Retold. He has all the tools to defend himself with Healing Spring, and he can start the game with a 3-dwarf lead at minimum due to his unique bonus with the armory. Alongside this, he's also going to be getting his copper upgrades as well, so starting with a boost to his army to boot. Not to mention, if you can hold on to Dwarven Mine past the Archaic Age, you're going to get a boosted gold income as well to start the game off. He also has all the tools to be incredibly aggressive early, as he doesn't need to build any dwarves in the Archaic Age and can skip an ox cart with Dwarven Mine. Beyond this, he also has access to Skadi, which, while Frost is notably weaker than on the Titans, it's still good, and all the upgrades that come with Skadi are bonkers good. He also has the combination of Ragnarok and Flaming Weapons, of which you can probably click your second Flaming Weapons with to just have a crazy advantage in the game. So, yeah, I think this god has got potential for sure, but it's going to need some time to work out, and normally, when it comes to kind of new RTS games, this is kind of a remake to some degree, but it's definitely got a different feel to it. Defending is generally a little bit more challenging than being on the offensive, and Thor is going to be one of those defensive gods. So we'll have to wait and see, but I think that while he didn't really get a lot of play on the beta weekend, I think his sleeper OP, we'll have to wait and see. Set is the hardest macro in the game. With Animals of Set being on the menu to eat, you just really need to be a strong RTS player to get the full value out of Set. He's also got access to what seem to be unkillable Anubites, as you can now jump anywhere, regardless of there being a unit there or not. Plague of Serpents received a huge buff as well, with them no longer being myth units. They're now animals, I think, as villagers can shoot them. But yeah, heroes no longer get any boost against these, so they're really, really good in fights, especially in the early game. He also has access to Nephthys, which has the Scorpion Men, which can also use its special ability on villagers. Expect to see like 2 or 3 Scorpion Men killing large packs of villagers, then hit and running on armies, taking large amounts of HP off them. He's also got access to a much improved Horus, with all the unique upgrades basically being the same but being dirt cheap, and Thoth, which appears to have the most bonkers upgrade in the game, Valley of the Kings, allowing you to literally get a 2-for-1 deal like you're going to the supermarket and picking up a few Tim Tams. That one goes out to the Australians out there. You'll get it. Anyways, Hades, this might be my bias coming from the Titans, but I think Hades is still strong. I think he's got the defensive capabilities in Sentinels, and his combination with that and the Nemean line being really, really strong means that Hades is going to be able to have access to this in every single game, and it's going to be really, really challenging to deal with it. So, yeah, the Nemean Lighten on the surface appears broken. You get a few of these out, and if you manually trigger staggering the special ability, you can chain crowd control an enemy army and just delete it before it has the chance to return fire. I also think that the Manticore is going to be a very, very strong myth unit as well. It does AoE damage, which appears to be very, very strong. And he's also got access to Ares, which means he's got a great opportunity to cause early game damage, especially towards the Norse gods that are going to generally give the Greeks a bit of a challenging time, and then follow up that with a really strong heroic age timing. I see Hades staying a very strong pick moving forward unless serious balance changes come forward. Not to mention he also gets free ballistics, which might not seem on the surface as a really big deal, but I think as soon as he hits heroic age, getting that ballistics out, it's going to be really, really challenging to actually beat that Hades army from the heroic age onwards. All right, this one might seem obvious to the players who had played quite a bit on the beta. I'm not actually 100% sure if Odin is realistically the best, the S tier god in the beta, but it definitely seemed like players were getting the most success, basically from the simplicity of play with this god. You have a really simple build order at your fingertips, takes very, very simple, doesn't take any real brain power to come up with it. The wood comes in perfectly for you to start your military. And then on top of this, his units also start with a booster HP, which is kind of like they've got copper mail and copper shields just to start the game off with. He also has access to Njord, which I think may be, funnily enough, the best heroic age minor god for the Norse. This is a bit of a welcome change. This is because literally everything in this god appears to be buffed. More and stronger walking woods, stronger mountain giants, and the mountain giant has an upgrade now. So this is going to be a tough one to break through. He's also got the ability to frost and then Ragnarok someone. And Ragnarok is still an S plus tier god power in Retold, it seems. If the beta went on a few more days, I'd expect to see people starting to abuse the weaknesses of Odin a little bit, specifically things like Anubites, Sphinx, and fast rushes with Ares or Anubis utilizing infantry units. In the end, I'm sure there is going to be much disagreement with this list, and even I'm already kind of disagreeing with it to some degree. But the game's still new, and I'm sure there's going to be some balance changes before launch, so we may not even know how correct this list is. If you guys enjoyed this one, please consider the follow on the Twitch. If you're on the YouTubes, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next game.